Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're keeping well and enjoying the weekend. I know the weather's not great, it's kind of raining, cloudy, cold. Yeah, it's not nice. I was out this morning and I came home quite quickly, to be honest. It wasn't exactly great in terms of the weather. So yeah, welcome back. For today I thought I'd cover like a couple of topics, one of which is going to be, if you are a YouTube creator, especially one of these kind of small YouTubers, i.e. with a following subscriber count of like, let's say, 50, or let's say 1 to 1,000 or 1 to 2,000, something like that, then this video is for you. I just want to kind of, run through some of the pros and cons, through why you should consider, keeping going and not retiring your YouTube channel, because it's getting tougher, it's getting much tougher. There's been a lot of changes to the platform with the algorithm and, certain new features and stuff, and it's very time consuming. Like I mentioned in the video before last, YouTube soaks up a lot of time, and everyone's on it for different reasons. For some people it's for job, for other people it's like a hobby, for other people it's something in between. Maybe that fits my definition at this exact moment in time. But things have changed a lot in 2025, and I just want to kind of spend a little bit of time on the video running through them and adding a bit of personal context and experience, and just basically saying stick with it. The second thing we're going to run through is conversion rate optimization. Now, this is something I have talked about or have not talked about on the videos so far. CRO, conversion rate optimization, is basically the process where marketeers within a company, small business, startup, anything, specifically businesses which are up and running and making money, they're looking to just discover, where people drop off the page, why they abandon the shopping cart, or why, some parts of their website are more popular than others, and what might be the blockers to people completing that customer journey and making a purchase or putting an order in or stuff like that. So we're going to be getting into that as well. There's loads of software out there which can help you with that. We'll put those in the description as well as mentioning them. But before we get into that, let's talk about YouTube. Now, I don't want the video to be too long today, but it's probably going to be up 25 minutes, half an hour at least, to be honest. So I've been doing YouTube for just short of 2 years. Now, for me, it's not a kind of full-time commercial thing, but I'm looking to level it up. I'm kind of in between that kind of hobbyist stage and being a kind of monetized creator. Now, I work in the digital marketing sector, or for sure that's my sector. It has been for 10 years. All the money I've made has been pretty much from that sector. So look, I have kind of learned a lot in the last couple of years, about some of the things we're led to believe and some of the things which are actually a bit more true. And I suppose another thing worth mentioning is that if you're kind of age 40, 45 and above, with AI starting to replace a lot of jobs and cut into certain business models and stuff, this is one reason why you shouldn't give up YouTube. Obviously it depends where you are on that journey. If you've only got like 20 subscribers, it's not going to do it, or 100 subscribers, it's not going to do any harm to give up, so to speak, if you find that you can make money in a better, more efficient way. But if you've got like 1,000 subscribers, which is not so easy to get to from scratch nowadays, especially since the algorithm changes, or if you've got anything upwards of that, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 50,000 subscribers, I really recommend stick with it. Don't give up. Things have got tougher, with all the platform changes and stuff, but looking ahead the next 5 years, depending on your age and your skill set and how well you come across on camera, I'm no television presenter as such, but the type of videos I make are more like vlog style videos. If you're presenting like a show, like a weekly show, or interviewing people and stuff like that, you need to be quite sort of polished and distinguished in how you come across. So look, let's get into this. There's been quite a lot of changes with YouTube. I mentioned in one of the previous videos quite recently, but YouTube's introduced into the kind of workflow of a platform the ability to script and get ideas for videos, and you can get AI generated thumbnails and download them, or if necessary even slot them into Canva, slot them into Adobe, and just edit them and play around with them a bit more to get them quite right. So look, I've got a bit of stuff in front of the screen as usual. I try and make the videos a bit of a mix. So sometimes I take a bit of stuff on the screen, sometimes I add a bit of personal context and personal experience, and I kind of jumble up and mix it up together, and that normally gets us where we need to be. So I'm going to read off screen a little bit now. So AI assisted tools are now part of the workflow within YouTube. So YouTube's built-in AI features, I had a play around with it recently. It's not bad actually, it's quite good. It gives you some quite good ideas which you may not get from some of the chatbots. From automated editing and script suggestions to thumbnail and title optimization. This is within YouTube, have gone mainstream. So creators use these tools daily to reduce production time and focus more on storytelling. Now I must admit, when I had a play around with it, I found some of the title suggestions quite useful. I found some of the AI thumbnails quite useful, although they did need editing in other design software, because they weren't, personally I would say they weren't fit to be deployed or uploaded without having some extra text and graphic design done to it, but it's a good starting point. So there's new content formats and features, like YouTube is introducing AI generated likenesses in shorts and new image post formats. On my channel I don't really do shorts so much. I've had a bit of a play around with it. It's good to have a bit of a mix of both, by the way, but because of the type of camera that I've got, after I've done this video, I'll save the MP4 file, I'll take it into Adobe or some other software, and I'll put it into like a clip maker, and then the AI will dissect it up into 10 clips and figure out what I'm saying in each of those 10 clips and add the title text and everything, and that's kind of probably the easiest way to do it. If you're creating, some of the channels, they create shorts specifically because maybe they've got an iPhone Pro Max or something similar to that, and that's what they're set up to do, or that's what they prefer to do. It does take less time to make shorts, depending on what phone you've got, what kind of stabilization you've got on the phone, or how good you are, or how confident you are. You can get wildly different results. I've always used the the Sony digital camera and a tripod. That's what I'm talking to now, into the viewfinder, and I find that the best. I really do. But for shorts, it's a bit different. There's different bits of stuff. I'm not saying it's more difficult, but if anything, I think it's easier because you can produce the clips in no time at all. You can use AI programs to auto edit them for you using AI, so it's a lot less time consuming. My bugbear with it is that I think anyone watching these things, there's only so much information you can get across within 60 seconds or 90 seconds or 2 minutes max, compared to like a full-length video. So that's kind of why I don't do it. Having said that, for times that I have done it, I've done a few, some of the different channels I've got, and you do get a lot more views, more likes. However, it doesn't always result in more subscribers, so it's good to do a bit of both. Some people say 60-40, there's a good ratio, 60% long form, 40% short form. You can play around with a bit, maybe 70-30 ratio. Maybe I will do some more, but the priority for me is long form content. So another thing YouTube's introduced is like auto dubbing. So these tools can help creators become a bit more visible in certain parts of the world, like if you've got like a video that you want to promote to Indian people in Hindi, for example, you can adapt thumbnails and descriptions and stuff. So yeah, that's quite useful. It's built in within the YouTube dashboard. I personally find that in places like India, where I do have quite a few subscribers, the English level is quite well spoken, especially amongst the younger, male, female generation. So by that I mean 25 upwards. A lot of them have gone to university, they've got professional jobs, they speak English well. So I've never really had to kind of put it in Hindi. I have experimented doing some videos in English and Hindi, but I've always found, you know, they totally understand what it's all about and can understand what I'm saying on the camera. So what else? YouTube is rolling out an in-app shopping. In-app shop. Do you know a lot of platforms doing that, like TikTok as well. It's been going for a while, that one. With native, this is YouTube, with native checkout, making it easier for viewers to purchase products without leaving the platform. It's all about making more money, how we can monetize and help creators monetize. So thereby giving creators a new revenue stream beyond ads, brand partnerships, dynamic branded segments, and dedicated creator partnerships. So look, it's going to be interesting to see that one. I actually haven't seen it yet. It's in the process of being rolled out, I understand. Now, the big multi-million-dollar question is, you know, is this only going to be available to creators with a certain amount of subscribers, or is it going to be available to, you know, all subscribers across the board, or, you know, 1,000 subscribers upwards? You know, that's the big question, because if it's only available to people with like 50,000 subscribers, it's going to be, you know, it's going to be restricted to the people who are just kind of getting going, trying to make the revenue from it. You know, there's a lot of these e-commerce shops now. You know, some of them just sell what I call clutter, you know, if that's a polite way of putting it, stuff you don't really need. So, you know, if you are selling stuff online, you know, as opposed to just doing what people have done in the past, selling like you know, a mug with your logo on, or a t-shirt with your logo on, you know, maybe you can try a bit, or online courses, try and be a bit more original in the products you're sourcing or and going to sell, you know, via the platform. Because, you know, at the end of the day, people will only buy stuff if it's going to be of use to them, you know, that's my experience. So that'll be interesting to watch out for. So look, last thing here, so authenticity is on the rise. You know, audiences are increasingly valuing sincere, unfiltered content over highly produced clips. Now, in my last video, I touched on this a little bit, how, you know, viewers everywhere, all platforms, have perhaps been a little bit turned off by, you know, people trying to get everything perfect, because, you know, it just comes across as like a little bit fake. You know, we live in a world where things aren't perfect, people aren't perfect, people don't present perfectly. I might not be perfect on this video. Nobody's perfect. But so, you know, if you can just try and come across as a bit more sincere, a bit more genuine, then that will really carry across on your channel with your viewers. And yeah, this trend favors like creators with expertise, personality, life experience, you know, and it's often a strength for older creators as well. So older means over 40, I guess, you know, from a creator point of view, 45, 50 maybe. There's lots of successful creators over 50, by the way. You know, don't think it's all like 20-year-olds or 25-year-olds, because that's totally not true. So yeah, there's quite a bit of stuff. I will put this in the description so you can just you know, run over it again in your own time. Right, let's move on to CRO. So look, in marketing, because, you know, obviously, you know, I've been a marketing manager and, you know, digital freelancer and stuff, you know, even to this very day. So basically, it's what I'm trying to say is it's not all about content and, you know, brand awareness and, you know, creating these big social media accounts for these different brands, called, often referred to as universally generated content. So, you know, a lot of the time we have to understand as marketeers, you know, what's going on with a particular brand, company, website, and why, you know, perhaps, you know, stuff is selling in physical stores, but maybe not selling quite so well online. You know, there's different reasons for that. With every product, every service has like a customer journey. Okay, so, you know, the fewer steps there are, and the simpler those steps are, with clear calls to actions, they're called CTAs, then the smoother that journey is going to be, and touch wood, you know, the more conversions and sales you're going to get. Now, very often, you know, and it's very common, by the way, you'll find that a lot of these businesses, especially the ones like wholly, you know, 100% online or new to the marketplace, they try and overcomplicate stuff. Maybe have pages a bit too snazzy, too many images, too many clicks, and what happens is people click off, you know. But let's think, if you think of this video is, I don't know, I haven't finished it yet, but it's probably going to be 20-25 minutes long at least. Now, when I go into the analytics, I'll find that, you know, a lot of people have clicked off, you see. you know, because it's almost standard practice. People watch the first couple of minutes, and then very few people watch it to the end. You know, that's just the reality. You know, it is for all creators. You know, unless you're one of these like superhero creators with like 1.9 million subscribers, then that is the reality. You know, people watch the first couple of minutes to get the gist of what it's about, and then they'll click off. You see, now the same thing happens with websites. People will go to a website. Let's say I land on a vitamin food supplement website, and I'm looking for vitamin tablets. Now, if I haven't found what I'm looking for within 3 or 4 clicks, maybe 5, the temptation is people are very impatient. They'll click off. They'll go to another website. You see. So this is where the conversion rate optimization comes in, and why marketers need to be looking at, you know, what search terms, you know, result in their site being shown by Google or by AI chatbots, and also when they arrive on that website, you know, what's the landing page going to look like? What's the landing page experience going to look like? Are there clear calls to action, or is it just fluff, you know, with brand awareness fluff and stuff? So the websites are kind of visually appealing because, you know, let's be honest, people do judge by appearances. Of course they do. You know, if you go to land on a website, a homepage often called a landing page, you know, people are looking for clear signposts, clear directions. You know, so I want vitamin tablets, where do I go? You know, so there needs to be like a clear drop down box so I can find what I'm looking for very quickly. Then you need to, you know, I'm talking from a customer point of view, then you need to be able to, you know, click on it and be taken straight to, you know, a kind of shopping cart page where you can, you know, review what you've just added to a basket, and then click pay, and there should be 3 or 4 options, you know, Stripe, PayPal, credit, debit cards, etc., etc., etc. So the whole process should be like really simple, but unfortunately in many cases it's not, and it's kind of 7 or 8 clicks, and sometimes those 7 or 8 clicks can be too many and people will drop off. Now, I will put all this in the description, guys. There's loads of software out there. Some of it's free, some of it's freemium. You know what that means, part free, part paid, and some of it's paid. So look, it varies wildly. You know, there's some good stuff out there, and if you know, you might be like a small business, you might be a solopreneur, you might be a marketing manager for a company that makes £1 million a year or more, or anything like that, or an even bigger company. And these tools will help you to understand, you know, not only, you know, if people are arriving at your website, but, you know, which pages are they looking at? You know, are they just going to the landing page and thinking, right, I've seen it, I've got the gist, or I'm off. You know, do you see what I mean? Or are they clicking through to About Us and learning a bit more about the company and then clicking off? Or are they, you know, looking for sustainability proof and reviews and stuff, and then making a purchase? Do you see what I mean? So these types of software, which I'll mention in a minute, will help you to understand what those patterns of behavior are, and maybe give you some cues and clues as to what you might need to do to, you know, improve that conversion rate optimization. You know, so yeah. Okay, so the first one is Google Analytics 4 free. So, you know, that's a well-known piece of software in the industry. You know, so it's very common. Just used to be Google Analytics, now it's Google Analytics 4. It came into play last year. Microsoft Clarity is another one. That's a free one. That's completely free. It's like a heat map. So you put a little bit of code on the back end of your website, and then it will give you, you know, a bit of a view, you know, in a heat map view, basically, of, you know, where people are arriving on your website, how long they're spending there, you know, which other pages they're clicking to and stuff like that. It's really useful, especially if you've got like an e-commerce site, or if you're a business which sells stuff online. It's going to be invaluable for you if you don't do anything like that already. Another popular one, it's quite popular, it's called Hotjar. It's freemium. So it combines heat maps, click maps and session recordings to visualize user behavior. A lot of these sites are the same. They do very much similar kind of thing. Some of the sites have got more features than others. Like there's another one here called Sumo, S-U-M-O, freemium again. Plerdy, P-L-E-R-D-Y. So Plerdy, that's freemium. Yeah, it's the same type of thing. I'm going to put all this in the description, so it's pointless me going into each one really heavily. So here you got the kind of mid-tier and paid tools, you know, so you have to spend a bit more, but you get a bit more. You get what you pay for. So quite a popular one's called VWO. I've heard of it before. Visual Website Optimizer, that's what it's called. So all-in-one CRO, conversion rate optimization suite that provides A/B testing, you do split testing, A/B testing, that type of thing, heat maps, session recordings, surveys, and personalization. Great for technical and non-technical teams alike. Some of these things have got weird names. The next one's called Crazy Egg. And, that's another one. They look very similar, similar types of tools. Maybe hasn't got some things the other ones have, or vice versa, but they all broadly do the same thing. Another one called Optimonster. I don't know where we get these names from, I really don't. Optinmonster, so that's AOPTIN Monster, weird name. PickReal is another one. Specializes in exit intent overlays and targeted engagement widgets. Mixed panel, yeah, that's quite a popular one. I've heard of that one before. Focuses on user engagement and behaviour analytics that were just worded different ways. They broadly do the same thing. Some have got features that others haven't, and if it's a paid version, it's going to be better than a free version, obviously. And then there's enterprise versions like Optimizely, Adobe Analytics, Adobe Target, Heap, as in HEAP. Look, I bung all this in the description because I don't see the point in just reading through, but this software does exist, and it's there for a reason, because a lot of people in marketing have these ideas to try and improve things this way or that way, or move the needle here or move the needle there, but we need to know that it's working, you see, because otherwise, without these tools and the conversion rate optimization, you're just literally, throwing shots into the dark, with no kind of feedback as to whether it's working or not, apart from the standard Google Analytics. So these CRO tools are really useful. As I said, with some free one, Microsoft Clarity is free if you don't want to spend any money. But if you prefer to spend a little bit of money, Hotjar is very popular. Mixed Panel's very popular. I'm sure they're all good. I don't want to kind of say that one's good and one's not, but just have a look at that. I'll bring it in the description, as I say, and spend a bit of time going through them, have a look at each one, figure out what you currently do, if you do anything at the moment, and whether that might be worth your while. I'm sure it probably is if you're an e-commerce business, or you are trying to sell stuff online via a website, as opposed to versus a distributor or physical location or something. Then yeah, it's worth doing. So look, I'll keep the video short because I did say I wanted to keep the video relatively short. Make it too long, people just click off, you see. So thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one soon. Probably in a couple of weeks. I'll try to make another one. Okay, so take care.